Hi everyone, welcome to the Small Biz Bros, brought to you by the Luxury Pergola, which is us.
So brought to you by me.
By us, exactly. So the point is that we wanted to make a small podcast here just talking about small business, growing a small business and what you need to do, what it takes, some of the problems that pop up and news, which it's always problems. So we wanted to talk through that. And then also to go over any questions you guys have in a small segment. So the thing's going to be separated out into three sections. The first one's just going to be talking about a topic that we see all the time doing this thing that is small business. The second one's going to be typically answering questions, given that this is podcast number 1. We have no questions from you guys. So we're obviously going to just come up with a question ourselves. So I have one already for Brendan. And then the third section is going to be typically talking about news in the world related to small business or a very important topic. And today we're talking about whether or not you should start a small business in a recession. That's a tricky one.
I think it's going to be a spicy argument.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it. So we're going to go through that. But just to start, the first thing is just talking about who we are. So I thought it would be important as a first podcast to say who we are, what do we do, what's our background, and get a little bit of a feel for that.
Yeah, so I obviously went to high school and everything, and then went to college. After college, went and worked at a Fortune 500 company doing logistics, operations, that kind of thing. Spent a lot of years there, and it was a great experience. But the thing with working anywhere is you have, limited upside as far as how far up you can go, how much money you can make, but unlimited downside. You get fired at any moment. So decided that I wanted to make the leap to joining my parents in their small business and help to grow and scale that. It took a little longer than we'd initially thought, but we've been doing this for about 4 or 5 years now. Yep. And it's starting to scale more like we were hoping it would. So that's kind of my background.
Yeah, I did the exact same thing. So as obviously my brother knows, I followed almost every single thing afterwards. So the same college, the same Fortune 500 company, and then we both came back here. I did beat him on coming back.
So technically I followed him at the end.
See?
So now I'm the follower.
So yeah, then we came back here and when we first came back, it was still a contracting company, right? Like it was the same thing that you'd expect out of a small business that's just construction. So at the time we were mainly focused on outdoor living, but we did, anything that was important or necessary to make money. Yep. And then we basically handle both the sales and installation end of that. So going out into people's homes and getting them interested and buying a product. And then after that, we went over, we'd go out and physically install it. When we first came back on board, we had 2 installers that would help install. And then when COVID hit, we didn't know what was going on. So we let them go pretty quickly after, because we expected everything to contract. Yeah. And it did contract. The stock market tanked.
Yeah. We had expected a lot of our customers to cancel their orders. Yep. We didn't know what was going to happen, and we were just kind of sit and wait for about a month. Yeah. Before things slowly and anemically started to return.
Yeah. It took a while. And then at that point, it was just 4 of us, just our parents and us. So then it was all, I did nothing but install and sell for a year. Yeah. A year and a half almost. When, obviously when we left the Fortune 500 company, you cut your salary to start a business because you don't pay yourself like you ought to.
You can't.
You can't, exactly. You want to put all the money back in the business. And then at the same time, we had, no time to grow.
No. So, they're just trying to survive.
Exactly. So that's, I think, part of the reason why we wanted to do this podcast is just because, people talk about wanting to start our own business. When you and I were younger, we both wanted to start a business really badly. That was the dream. We went to college to study business with the intent of eventually starting something. Right. And not necessarily together, but in general.
Yeah.
And then, you find out that what really happens is it takes a lot longer
Yep.
than you originally expect. You know, especially when we came back, I was 24. You
Yep.
were 20.
27, 26, 27.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yep.
you know, time feels longer than a year feels like an eternity.
Yep.
And so, you know, if someone had told us before we came back it was going to take 3 years before we really became a manufacturer, you were
Yep.
just going to be a contracting company and mainly physically installing
Yep.
for those first 3 years, it may have not been as easy a decision for us to come back.
Well, it's one of those things that's easy to say.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I could do it for 3 years.
Yeah,
Doing it every day.
If you know that it's at the end too.
Yeah, if you know there's going to be that it's going to transition, but there's no promise of that.
Yeah.
And it's easy to fall into the inspiration stuff like, oh, go out and start your business.
Yeah.
And do this and conquer the world.
Yeah.
And what's the saying? It takes 10 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah.
And it's easy to say, oh, well, 10 years, but there is no guarantee that anything is going to work that entire time. You could have wasted your time for 10 years and you have no idea.
And money. And,
Yep.
you know, I don't know if a lot of people know this. If you're watching this, you're probably interested or already own a small business, then you know that when you take a loan out as a small business, you know, you're not like a corporate company taking a loan with a bank where they
on
say,
your assets
exactly,
or something like that.
on your assets, where they say, okay, if you go default, you know, we'll just take all your stuff back.
Yeah.
You know, you're just doing it on credit.
Yeah.
And so they'll give you sometimes really large loans, hundreds of thousands of dollars, with the expectation that if you default, they take all of your stuff too. You have to personally guarantee
They're
it.
a personal loan, basically.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. It's a personal loan. It just happens to be structured towards a business first.
Right.
So, you know, that's obviously plays into it, because if you're worried about cash flow, for example, which I think any small business has always a concern on cash flow, you start to see that contract, like we have, and you start to start to get worried pretty fast that maybe this is not the right thing. Maybe your original idea is not as good as you thought, or people aren't as interested as you thought.
Yep.
I mean,
and that's almost always the case.
Yeah.
Your first idea is going to be the wrong idea.
Yeah.
99.9% of the time.
Yep.
And you just got to iterate and figure out what is the right idea, and just listen to what feedback you're getting from your customers.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't. If anyone came from a business background where you write Excel sheets, that was me. So when I first came back, I was like, we need to be on a budget. Like, why are we not on a budget? You know, we need to section out what we spend and what we don't spend so we don't overspend.
Right.
It was fear, right? I was worried that we were going to overspend.
We probably did.
We did. In certain areas, subcontractors mainly.
Yeah.
But you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And so, like, you can't budget out something without knowing what you actually are going to need to spend money on.
Yep.
Especially in the growth phase, but even in general as a small business, it's hard to do that. It's hard to have time to do it.
Yeah.
And then when you do come up with an idea and then you write out a spreadsheet of how much money you're going to make. I remember the first bankers we had in to try and fund this whole thing, which they never funded. We had to do it ourselves. But I asked them, you know, I showed them the spreadsheet and they said, oh, okay. Yeah, we typically take these numbers and cut them in half.
Yeah.
And even then, every idea we ever fund doesn't even meet that.
Yeah.
I was like, first off, rude.
Yes.
I spent a lot of time on this, but they're right.
Yeah.
I mean, at least that first year of that part of the business, I thought it was going to do better than it did.
Yeah.
Now, if I had them try and fund this, we'd be right on what we thought we were going to do.
Yeah. But it's because we were wrong so many times before. Yeah. Now we have realistic expectations.
Yeah. And small side, we started... So after we started the contracting company, or really started with our parents on the contracting part of the company, the eventual state where we are now is that we started selling our own pergola, which you might be able to see in the wide shot right there. Our own aluminum pergola that opens and closes.
Yep.
We started selling that to contractors first as a dealer model, and the dealers didn't take off nearly as quick as we thought it would. Yeah. There's a lot of reasons for that, which we could talk about in a future podcast. But then we thought, okay, well, why don't we just sell it direct to consumer?
Yep.
We started the brand, the Luxury Pergola, which is who sponsored this video.
The Luxury Pergola.
Oh yeah. So we started that, and that took off.
Yeah.
It facilitated a lot of this. That's why we're in this space. That's why we do what we do. So I want to switch into the second section now that we've covered who we are. and just talk about the question. And so the question that I was thinking about, something that I think a lot of people have as a hard time in a small business, is appreciating it.
Oh, yeah.
And so question would be, how do you get yourself to appreciate the journey?
Yep.
Because there is no end state.
No.
You know, some people want to sell a company. That's like a several month process, but it's like a day.
Basically, yeah.
The day is the selling the company. Like the day you sign on the dotted, that's one day.
Yep.
So you can't make that the goal.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make it the goal, but you can't make your whole life about that day.
Right.
You have to enjoy the steps to get there. So how do you get yourself to enjoy the journey?
Yes.
That's my question to you.
Okay. So
I'll go after.
You'll go after? Okay. So you're gonna copy my answer.
Yeah, I'll try and make it.
Improve on it.
Yeah.
So what I find helpful is focusing on little wins. So a small business or any business in general is about solving repeating puzzles and repeating problems. Mm-hmm. And it's usually a different problem or variation on a previous problem every time. And celebrating those small wins and focusing on what you have learned and the experience you have gathered is really, really important. If you make it just about the day you sell it, like what happens the day after that?
Yeah.
Like, it's not a fairy tale where it's happily ever after and you live in eternal bliss until the day you die. Like, you're going to wake up the next day and it'll be just like the day before. Your bank account's probably going to be, healthier, but what next?
Yeah.
So you could focus on, okay, I'm going to grow this and sell it. Maybe that'll be successful to grow the business. Is that successful for your life in general? For most people, probably not.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think the appreciating it, I find the easiest when we have people visit.
Oh, yeah.
When you try to see what you've done through someone else's eyes, then you recognize how far you've come.
Yeah.
I mean, this space, for example, which if you go to the Luxury Pergola page, or if you're finding us on that page, and you can see our facility tour. But this space in general, I mean, when we first toured it,
yeah.
When you start, when you start the journey, we walked through here and we're like, this place is enormous, right? It's way too big. We did that with the last facility too. And then when you start moving, I would come here and start moving things, and the feeling was, there's a lot of dust on the ground. I need to put tape down. I need to build this. This needs to come in. I need to move this. I got to run electrical here.
Yeah.
Problems. Focusing on the problems. But when you have someone else come, like my wife's parents came, or our mother had someone visit just last week, seeing how they react, you can take a step back and realize all that you've done.
Yep.
And then I agree on the day-to-day. You have to just enjoy your life.
Yes.
Like, it has to be a job and an every day that you enjoy.
Yep.
Because, especially for us, family business, this is time we get to spend with our parents.
Yep.
And you don't know how long you have with anyone in life. Yep. And so, this for us is a golden era where we can spend so much time with them and work effectively with them. That, it's nice that we get to do.
Yeah.
It's hard to think that way when we're just talking business. We talk work all the time. So It's tough. But I agree. You got to make the day to day enjoyable. Yeah. So the last piece, the one that people may have been interested in or skipped up to now in order to see, is starting a business in a recession. Mm-hmm. Now, this was your topic idea.
Yes.
So
I'm going to caveat it a little bit. So small business or side gig.
Okay.
So I think it's probably a horrible idea to leave your W-2 job and start a business if you don't have anything already.
Yeah.
That's a terrible, terrible, terrible idea, because you are going to struggle for months and you won't even know how you're messing up.
Yeah.
I think you should start a side gig. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you have a job, make it through layoffs, and then start up a side business.
Yeah.
Do not quit your main job until that side business is doing 1.5 to 2 times the income of your normal job. Then you can switch over.
Yeah.
But a side gig, absolutely, because there's so much opportunity when everybody else is scared.
Yep.
When everybody else it's a recession or whatever the reason, there is a huge amount of opportunity when everybody else is trying to hunker down and survive. If you can go out and do something, I mean, there's much less competition. And then once you get out of the recession, huge room for growth.
Yeah.
So starting a small business from scratch, absolutely not. Starting a side gig, as an offshoot of your normal job, as long as you're not stealing intellectual property from your boss or your job, absolutely a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I thought you would be a little bit more aggressive on the business point, starting a small business.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to define what is a small business and what's a side hustle too.
Yeah.
Because, you should definitely, if you're going to do a side hustle, incorporate it.
Yep.
Right. So it is a business at that point.
Yeah. The side hustle, I'd say, is 20 hours or less a week.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. So it's tempting because I started a side hustle doing YouTube stuff on a different channel. And I started that last year, and that took about 20 to 23, 25 hours a week.
Yep.
Which was tough with this at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's tough to not want to push harder.
Yep.
That's the hardest part, I think, with side hustles is you start something, you start to see success, right? And you think, well, if only I had more time.
Yep.
Right? Then I could drive it harder and then I could get to this and this. And I think the biggest thing I would recommend to anyone is to still take their time because it always takes longer. I mean, in the YouTube thing, it's just a small example, but it's the same thing we saw when we were contractors, which is you come up with a really good idea, right? Like I'll make a video and I'll say, this video is going to just do amazing.
Yeah.
And it falls flat on its face.
Yep.
You don't know what people want until you try it.
Yeah.
And then, all that money or time you poured in my case, both, sometimes doesn't pan out.
Right.
So if you go overboard on a specific idea, I think what was helpful for me as a side hustle, and I think what might be helpful for a lot of people as a side hustle, is to spread out a little bit of the risk. So if you're interested in like 3 ideas, put a little bit in and see what starts to catch.
Yep.
And then roll from there rather than I know I have the perfect idea and pummel $1,000 or $3,000 into it.
Yep.
Depending on how much liquid income you have, I guess.
Right.
It's up to you. But it's hard to toss a lot of money at something not knowing. The other thing I will say for a side hustle that did help me, if someone is going to do it, whether or not getting a credit card in a recession is possible, that might be.
Oh, you can get a credit card.
I'm assuming you might be able to still get it with a good offer.
Yeah, the credit limit is going to be different, and the interest rate's probably going to be ridiculous.
Yep.
But you get a credit card, I'm sure.
The 0% interest rate cards are a great float to start as long as you manage how much you spend.
Yep.
They're very helpful because you can't expect revenue on the front end.
Definitely not.
You can as you get going. Just as long as you take your expectations and cut those in half and potentially cut them in half again.
Yes.
So you don't overspend. But that is a helpful method. I think so. And even if it's not a recession, side hustles, I think, maybe it's just because we do this, more reassuring to me than, putting my money in a specific stock.
Yeah.
Or whatever other people do. Gold, I guess.
Yeah.
People put money in gold.
I'm bullish on silver.
Yeah.
I'm aping silver.
Okay.
So I have silver bullion buried in the backyard.
You shouldn't say that.
It is not. It is buried somewhere other than my backyard in the woods.
Yeah.
But yeah, silver all the way.
Yeah. But I mean, some people, and that's what they choose to do, and that's fine. But I always feel like having a potential way to make more money that is unrestrained, that you are the only person that decides how much money you can make doing that thing, I think is really great.
It's motivating too.
Yeah. And it gives you something to do too, frankly, other than, I don't know. It's hard to find time. I assume if you have children, I don't have that yet.
Yeah.
But outside of that, like, when you're in your young 20s, you don't have that many time commitments, or early 30s.
You have the energy, you got the time.
Exactly. And you can start something and it keeps you from doing other things that may just that don't use your time as effectively if your goal is to make money. I suppose.
Right.
So I agree. It's there are I think there are a lot of pieces in there though that it would be helpful. So I would recommend anyone ask questions in the comments below about starting a side hustle, incorporating an LLC, tax benefits to that. I mean, people say the word expense it. It's like, yeah, but someone has to still pay that bill.
Yeah.
It helps from a tax standpoint, but not from like a...
You can't go overboard either.
Money.
Because then you got the IRS and then a big tax bill or prison, and nobody wants that.
Correct. Yeah. So definitely, I don't know. I'm not a financial advisor, so I don't know any of what people should or shouldn't do other than what I've done.
Right.
But a lot of that, I mean, there's a lot of pieces in starting a side hustle or small business that I think would be helpful to talk about. So people that have questions, leave them in the comments below. I'd like to use your questions for the next section rather than one of mine. And outside of that, we just wanted to give an intro to us, talk about a few topics that are important to us. And that's pretty much it. Do you have anything else to add?
No, it's don't expect the journey to be rainbows and sunshine. It's going to be a lot of pain. And you just got to get used to beating your head against the wall for years and thinking you fail at everything. And just adjust as you can. It is not necessarily fun, but it is rewarding.
I agree. Yeah, definitely. That's pretty much it for the Small Biz Bros. Love the name. I think it's hilarious. And obviously check out our sponsor, us, at theluxurypergola.com. Any plug you want to add into that?
Goes like this.
It's a pergola that goes like this. It's fantastic.
You should, it's a great pergola. We make it ourselves here in Indiana. So it is, we're very proud of the product. If you're interested, just give us a call. I'll probably be one of the people answering the phone. I'm almost always one of the people answering the phone. So if you want to call and just chat.
Small business.
Yeah, it's a small business. We do everything.
I'm just going to answer the phone.
I answer calls all the time. So, feel free to give us a call. And that's all I got.
All right. Well, let us ask any questions in the comments below. Let us know if you want any suggestions on changes in format as well. I think sectioning it is helpful. And then any major topics, we'll keep looking for topics, but if you have a topic suggestion, we'll definitely, look at it and may use it because we have very little time, obviously, small business. So it's nice to have suggestions. Other than that, we'll see you guys in the next one.
Thanks.
See ya.